Tererai, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
And how are you keeping?
I'm good.
You
I
look,
can't
you look
complain.
well.
I
Like
can't
you look
complain.
so great.
I'm super blessed.
You're super blessed.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It's been how many years now?
Since I last saw you.
No. Since this journey began.
The music.
Since the music, yes.
I've been professionally recording for the past 17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you started?
It's a minute. We've got to talk about my journey from when I discover music and sound. That was 1992.
92.
I was 7 years old.
Right.
So my first inspiration was Yvonne Chaka Chaka.
Who was playing Yvonne around the house?
Specifically, it was on TV.
Oh.
It was on TV. You know,
Right.
we would have those moments, you know, as a family, you come together and you're watching Thursday night, Friday night, they would have, you know, an mvenge, and I would literally dress up like her, cut up my socks to dress up like her, and I would run in front of the television, be performing for Moms and Dada, you know, my siblings picking on me like I was just getting on their nerves, you know.
Right.
But that's when I discovered music. And
What are some of your favorite cuts from you, Mama Yvonne?
Mama Land,
Land is a
even
jam.
to this day, yeah. That for me.
Mine is Let Him Go. Let Him Go is my
Okay. As well, yeah.
It's they write such a beautiful human story.
Yes.
And it's just so fascinating. And
very
so,
genuine.
Yeah. So after that, then
I joined the choir in grade 3.
Which school was this?
I was at the Dominican convent in town. And my choir teacher, what she would do is she'd move sort of between the rows and then put her ear to your mouth, and then remember her pulling out 4 of us, and she said, you guys are going to participate in the vocal solo at the National Eisteddfod. I'm like, okay. So from then on, kind of classically trained every year until grade 7, taking part in National Eisteddfod. Grade 7, taking home the honors, which was very difficult. You know, we had a very stern judge, you know, but through that whole process, kind of that grooming, that's what, you know, I got to learn reading music.
You can read
the
music?
Notation, yes.
Oh, wow.
And at some point had actually started piano, but what then happened is I was a bit of an all-rounder in school, so the sports side, I needed to balance the sporting side with the cultural activity side. And only Form 1 was I able to kind of bite into a little bit of everything. So I was basketball, I was on the tennis team. I remember I was at school with Christy Coventry.
Really?
Yeah.
Same class or?
No, she was 2 years my senior.
She was 2 years your senior.
Yeah.
Of course she was already...
She was swimming
yeah,
already.
She was
I remember
already.
like we'd come from tennis and we'd be in the water, and Mrs. Houghton coming to me and saying, would you try it for the swimming team? And that wasn't even a thing in my head. So, but outside of everything, water is my thing.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a little fish. Form 3, I had formed a group called Essence, initially called Genesis, until I discovered that there was a Genesis already, Phil Collins. So I remember being there with my group and thinking, you know, what do we call ourselves? And then we were opening the Bible and looking literally for words that just, because we sang gospel a cappella.
Right.
And then seeing the word essence, and then we became Essence. And then we're like, you guys did spell it different. So we spelled it like S-E with an acute NC, just to be different.
Of course.
And Form 3, we had the opportunity to open for Oliver Mtukudzi at the Prince Edward Ethnic Music Festival.
How was that experience?
That for me was the first eye-opener to what this all could be, you know.
Right.
I remember him, you know, they were launching the cultural school, at Prince Edward. They had built this auditorium. And I remember him, this was after our performance, and we sort of went to the back of the auditorium, and it's like this auditorium, you know, is built up like a movie house. And He went on stage with just his guitar and was performing Neria. And his vocals resonated to the back of this auditorium.
No PA
And I was no PA, but you could hear the
'Cause
power.
acoustics,
And
yeah.
and I was just like, wow, I want to do this forever, you know? Completely unadulterated, just the purest, just, yeah, that. And I think that's when my dream started. I knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Right.
And at that point, in Zimbabwe, there isn't like an urban culture. I'm hearing James Chamhembe, who's another one of my heroes, you know. I'm hearing...
Why James? Why James?
His music is just... I'm hearing soul in his music. I'm hearing, you know, that mellow, that...
Yeah.
Yes, and then just very... Whoo! So he's one that moved me. Mechanic Manyeruke. You know, my mom would always be playing his music, taking me to school.
Right.
So that was another one of my influences. So I knew that I wanted to do this, and it was possible that we could do this and actually make a living off of it. But in terms of my peers, I hadn't seen anyone yet do it.
Oh.
So that was something that we needed to.
So what was on TV? What was on radio? Can you capture just the culture
The
of what?
essence of
What
my
was the time?
inspiration is 90s, late 90s to, you know, early 90s to late 90s American R&B pop culture.
That's what was playing on the radio.
On radio.
What about outside when you guys were doing anything at the V shows or for anything that was happening? What were people doing? What was the representation of what Zimbabwe was, or through a youthful expression?
It was emulating what we were seeing on television, what we were hearing on radio.
Right.
At some point in time, you know, I do remember the emergence of the internet. Probably when I'm 12, 13 years of age. So people were largely influenced by a culture that wasn't actually their own. You know, our dress sense was not our own, you know, when platinum jeans were happening in America, coming, you know, here. Us girls were influenced by the Spice Girls. You know, I remember buying Spice Miss shoes that were like chunky, you know, these, didn't have anything authentically Zimbabwean that I was vibing to. So it was emulating what I was seeing coming from out there. And that's what was filling our ears. Radio, you know, television, yes, you'd see Ezomgido. But like I'm saying, that was not our peers. It was the other generation.
So 99, the future happens. Significant time in just...
Yes.
Because for the first time, people are seeing themselves.
Right.
Youthful music that is authentically Zimbabwean starting to play on the radio.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there is an awakening.
Right.
And where do you find yourself in that whole story?
I am at school when that happens. I am, I think, lower 6, maybe Form 4, Form 3. And what would happen, we had these interact shows that would happen. And I remember at the time, I started to see adverts. There was a show called youth.com.
I remember youth.com.
And there was this advert. So I'm at school, I'm at boarding school, and I'm seeing, you know, those chances we get to be in the study and watching TV. And I would see this, it was Rocky and Ngoni. And I remember thinking, they were singing a song called Donna. Yes. And I was like, wow, you know, okay, what is this, you know?
I remember that exact tin.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. And I remember being in the prefect study and saying to a friend of mine, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be there. And, you know, people are just like, ha, 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 Terry, yeah, you know. And I'm like, no.
I'm for real, though.
All right, cool. And the next year, so I remember we had this Interact Youth Against AIDS concert. And one of the girls at the school, her sister, was Sani Makalima's girlfriend. And they had come to this performance, to this concert. And the school asked me to do the opening prayer, and I decided to do the opening prayer in song. And Rocky and Leonard Mapumo came up to me afterwards, and they were like, listen, that's very good what you did out there, you know. Would you be interested in coming to see our
that sounds more
producer?
like Rocky, though.
Yes. I was like, okay, let's do this, you know. Literally, that's how it happened. The holiday came, I came home.
They got your number?
No. I got home and my parents had traveled to South Africa. And oh my gosh, I don't believe I'm telling people this. The kitchen door, the kitchen door key would open the car. So I took my mom's car and drove to Eastgate. And as I'm parking the car, Rockford is walking out.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Why were you going to Eastgate that day?
Literally, that was like Digit Central, you know, and you're on your break, waiting for results.
Can we talk about what was
that culture?
Because people don't understand that culture. Who could be watching this now?
It's so insane. Do I even remember? Like, I'm ancient now. Yeah, basically, we had places we would go, and people would just kind of hang around, you know, the movie houses at Eastgate, you know. You know, it would be your O-level break. People would just go hang around, do ice cream, do takachena. There was like a vibe. There was a certain vibe to it, you know, just being there, not doing anything.
No,
the crazy thing is, you would be there calling everyone else a digit. You know what I mean? I remember that. Being like, no, I am supposed to be here, you know?
What's he doing here?
What's he doing here? Well, now, and my girlfriends and I would sit there and just, you know, talk about people for days. And yeah. So
you parked the ride.
And then I see him walking out, and he was like, oh, you know. And then he took me to Delani's studio. Delani's studio was in Marlborough at the time, in Crichton Avenue. And we went. And then he told him, look, I met this girl at this school. She sings. Do you want to hear her? I remember them kind of talking about, you know, joking about, you know, Rockford was just very confident about, you know. And yeah, I sang Dangerously in Love, Beyonce.
Such a record.
And how do you even, like, seriously?
Yeah,
I know, right? I know. And Delani says, right, can you come on Monday to sign a contract?
I'm like, what?
Literally just like that. So that was the beginning for me.
So you go back to Delani on Monday?
Yes. I go back.
Do you sign a contract?
With my father, yes.
With your father?
It was a 32-page contract, and there were two of them. There was the artist management contract, and there was the recording contract. Yeah.
And you guys went.
Dad went through it. You know, they had the whole discussion, like, what are you trying to do? What does this mean to you? So my dad is like, but mwana wangu, arufana kwenda kuchikoro, you know, there's this side to her whole existence. You're right. So what are you bringing to the table, you know? Went through it thoroughly. And I respect my father and my mother to this day, because in as much as music wasn't something you could look to say, have a career, you know. Whatever it is they were seeing, but they gave me the chance to go and attack it, you know, and yeah.
So, did you make any records with Delani? I
did. We did a 13-track album. We did a 13-track album.
What happened to that?
It's crazy. Delani, I guess Zimbabwe was happening at the time for everyone. Mm-hmm. And he made changes in his life. He had to move to South Africa. and equals what he said to us was, I'm taking your work, I'm going to go mix it, and then we'll come back with, your works and we start to release. So I guess he got to South Africa and, you get to the other side, it's greener. And yeah, he forgot about us.
So are there any records that were on that album that we ever heard?
Oh, yes. I attribute my award to 4 of the songs that were on that album.
Which songs were that?
There was Iwe Neni.
Iwe Neni, that's my record. Oh, yes. Yes.
There
Iwe
was
Neni.
I Need Somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There was Chisi Chako.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other song? Shamal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my award based on those 4 songs and Wayenda and Chamhembe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it did the things, it did the things, but
so Delani leaves, right?
Yeah.
And now there's a huge space. Everyone who was on Delani's stable
Yes.
doesn't have anywhere to go.
Right.
Right. So you're one of those people.
Yes.
So explain now the transition from Delani to Take 5.
So yeah, you know how it goes. There's a producer who has, he's recording, he's at such and such a location, and then we were a family, us guys, so we are moving together because we are experiencing the same lows, and everyone has this one vision that we're trying to create this. It's a movement. We want to do the music, put it out there. Performances, people feel, we are seeing that people are feeling the music. So let's do this. We then hear through other artists that there's a guy called Take 5. Is recording.
Take 5 before?
I hadn't met Take 5. The other guys had met him. They were already familiar. I hadn't actually met him. I was signed to Galaxy but hadn't met
Because you were always
Take
in
5.
school as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I meet him through my fellows. We go qua Take 5, and what we had with Delani is that amplified,
What was the...
in terms of the vision. Guys, let's get into studio. Let's record. People are hungry for music. Right now, there's this law that's, they're saying 100% local content. So people need music right now, right? Jonathan Moyo had stepped in to say, enough of trying to push music yokunzog. We have our own talent. So let's hear this, So that's what it was. We are, as individuals, have been growing with these dreams that this is who we would become. So through Jonathan Moyo, we have now been allowed, and we are finding ourselves qua Take 5, and it's the same vision. Now, Take 5 is not asking for money for recording. He just wants us to record, go to him with a song, be serious about it. You would get time. So it would be like we would all be there, and then you would get called into the booth. Songs are being recorded, mixed, mastered. Next thing, we have Chamhembe.
Before you go there, backtrack a bit. What was the vibe like at Chamhembe? And by the time you went to Chamhembe, to Take 5, was it called that squad? Was it Chamhembe already? Were people already shouting out Chamhembe? What was happening at the time? And if you could just...
It was that squad. It was that squad. He was working with TBA. And I think it was a song that they had done, Trinity, that had done a song, and they had mentioned Chamhembe. And then we had Double Trouble come through and then kind of draw on that concept. So when I then heard Double Trouble, I think in my own head, it wasn't something someone sat me down and explained. it was just me listening to this song that's number 1 on Chamhembe 1, and the vibe that this song has, you know, talking about Chamhembe, you know, is a place where it's gonna be this and that, you know. That's how I drew from that to write my own Chamhembe. I was walking up the road, actually, walking 4 kilometers home, and thinking to myself, I've made no money. I have to tell you, Chamhembe 1, what happened at Chamhembe 1, we signed contracts. It was a 2-page contract. And it stated that we would only have rights to our music 18 months from release of that project. So what happened was that all this money started to come in, you know. The album was selling like hotcakes, and money was being made. A lot of the artists didn't understand what was going on, you know, because I feel like I remember having a discussion with a few artists, and a lot of them had said, I'm not signing no kind of contract. And I think people at the time felt like if they don't sign a contract, it means that they're not bound to anything. But they didn't realize that we've been recording for free. We've been doing, you know, getting all these kind of, you know, privileges, actually. So we owed Take 5. So there was this, people became very sullen, you know. It was, you know, people blasting Take 5 to say, how are you eating without us, you know? So when Chamhembe Plus happened...
Wait. So all these talks of Uitamari or Skutamari, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Was it after Chamhembe Plus or before Chamhembe Plus?
It was before. It was after the first Chamhembe.
After the first
Volume
Chamhembe.
1.
So what were the talks like when people were now compiling Chamhembe Plus? Because
It was to say, we know better, so let's do it again and get it right. But then the thing that people didn't do, and I remember saying to people, do you need me to bring my father in to maybe renegotiate the terms of the contract? And I remember people kind of saying, you know, let's not go ahead of ourselves, you know. We didn't really understand. I think it was also, people feel like to do that is to create a tension between yourself and the producer. They didn't want to do that. But when I look at it in hindsight, you know, when you go into something like that, you have to be frank, you know, about yourself, your needs, you know. And we just didn't know better. We didn't know better. So everybody was angry. We were presented with this contract. You had the right to bring a lawyer in to discuss the terms and negotiate, renegotiate, and put you in a better standing. But nobody did that. So as we're complaining, I could see already, because I had my father's words in my ear, I could see already that we are showing that we are misguided. We are, you know, but I didn't say anything because I thought to myself, I don't want to go to my father and ask for money. I don't want to go to him. I want to continue this relationship, this vibe we're on, you know, and see where we get to. So Chamhembe Plus, the discussion was, you guys, let's do it again, and then we will get it right, you know. And
what's the getting it right that people were alluding to?
To say, we see now what we did wrong. But that was just all talks.
Yeah.
It wasn't...
Who was managing? Who gave you the contract to sign?
That was Grace Dinami,
Right.
Take 5's sister.
She was managing the studio?
That squad, yeah.
That
she was
squad.
managing
Okay.
Take 5, yeah.
Was TBA still there at this point?
I would be lying to say when exactly that squad and Chigutiro separated, or TBA and Take 5 separated. I'm not clear on that, because just even when I would record, TBA was never there. So these are things that I would hear from other artists, that TBA and Take 5 were this one entity, and Jazuitika. So I never saw them together.
Right.
Yeah.
So Chamhembe Plus happens, right? And Chamhembe is massive.
Oh yeah.
Like it's massive. Plus, it's the effect is cataclysmic. It's
Yes.
too big.
Yeah.
Right. Where are you now in your journey at this point?
So at this point, I leave for South Africa to do school. And what had then happened was that because of Chamhembe, I was getting called to other jobs.
Where? In Zim?
So in Zim.
Okay.
So Alexio was recording a project and had come through with Nesto. They actually came through to the house, and I remember vachipugamira moms kuti, truda kushanda nemwana wenyu, and going to record a song I did with Alexio called Tinodanana.
Okay.
So these things started happening as Chamhembe was blowing up like that.
Right.
You find Wayenda was still on the charts, your I Need Somebody's was still on the charts, and I had recorded other music, Sands of Time. So I had recorded Tinodanana and then shortly after left for school. And then literally I remember my mom calling me and saying, your song has been on #1 for almost half a year now.
Which song is that? Chamhembe?
Tinodanana. Yeah.
So when you look back at that whole era, because a lot of it happened when you had already left for South Africa, right? Mm-hmm. But for the time you experienced and when you look at it now in hindsight, what do you think was the legacy of Chamhembe, or the Chamhembe era, if we could call it that?
You know what? I think I want to just thank Jonathan Moyo, first of all, for the fact that we actually were able to get airplay like that. What's distressing for me to note is the idea that we just were not ready. No matter how you want to look at it, we were not ready. There's so much more that needed work put into it, to complete what was a bit half circle, We had the right, as far as, we are a group of very energetic, we have the same vision and we know what we want to do with music. Right. We were cool. Our legacy is that it was family. We were family. The movement was very real, people coming from different walks of life just to merge their energies and make this thing happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was our legacy.
So when you started just doing music and stuff, the idea that you could sing in Shona, the first time you were introduced to the idea that, I could actually sing in Shona and make it actually really cool and exciting. Were you as receptive to it from the jump? Or it's something that you had to warm up to? Because you've been listening to all this American music this whole time.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that when you were writing, it's not like you're writing Shona raps, right? It's Shona songs or Shona anything, right? Plus also maybe the environment you grew up in didn't allow a lot of Shona expression, especially creatively, right? So is this something you took just from the jump? When you thought of writing a song, you'd write a Shona song?
Oh yeah, my very first song was actually in Shona. Wayenda is completely in Shona, yeah. I hate the school I went to actually for the fact that, I speak the way I speak because I was one of 9 black girls in a class of 34 since 1991. So for 13 years, I am influenced by a culture that isn't mine. But that didn't change my mindset. It didn't change that I would go home to people who would, who I am culturally has never been tainted or changed because I speak English a certain way or speak English. I don't also believe that singing in Shona is what puts an identity to my person.
That's right.
I could sing in English, in broken English, in a Shonalized English, and my look and the spirit you are drawing from me show and tell you that ndiri mushona, ndiri munhu mutema,
Right.
I'm deeply rooted in my culture. So yeah, language is not, it should not be a barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you say you were not ready, so you're saying that everyone else was ready, just not the artists, or maybe also as the consumers we were not ready, or as the corporate world was not ready. Everyone was not ready. Are you saying we were all not ready, or it was mainly the artists who were not ready? Because there are many layers to that.
You mean singing in Shona?
No.
In
When you
English?
said, when I asked you about the legacy, you said when you look back at it, you were just not ready, right?
Right.
Were you speaking more from the artist's end or just the whole chain?
No, from actually, yes, the whole chain. Because to be an artist, you have to be surrounded by an entire chain of people. You need management. You need, you yourself, the artist, need to understand the business side to what you're doing. So when you are signing a contract and unaware of, what this contract is saying, what it's going to mean to you in the next 18 months, then all wrong, So it's absolutely everything. As a female, speaking as a female artist, trying to come up in that industry at the time, anyone that I would work with, you say a promoter were approaching me to do a gig, to talk about, whatever it was. They wanted more than just my vocals. So it was so necessary for me to have management, to have people to represent me, to stand up for me. And I got tired of people calling me to functions and saying either we're trying to build a relationship, so all we're going to provide is drinks and transport. And then I would say, I have a son. I want to come home with food, with something to show that I'm going out there and doing something. Like, what is it that you are trying to make me right now? Feeling very just not valued, So it was all wrong. And one thing that I'm glad about, I want to speak about what I dreamt I wanted to be as an artist. I never saw myself as a performer. I never saw myself on stage. I always wanted to be someone who recorded music and people would hear the music and not necessarily have to put a face to it, And even there being a wonderment to that mystery, because there are artists like that. I had the privilege of traveling to Michigan, and the home of Motown. And I remember being in this one house, and it was a group of musicians who are now like they're old Balis, who have made their name in the state of Lansing. And, they've never been commercial like that. You probably don't even know about these guys, but they are a jazz band, cool crooners type setup.
Right.
And their industry allows for them to do what they do and maintain their ability to just be very private, to move about in town, to just be normal. But then people probably don't realize that you've probably been buying their music for years, and they're actually sustaining themselves off of this. So,
sorry to just cut you off there. Before I forget, did you actually experience celebrity, the celebrity during that Chamhembe era, the Chamhembe?
I did. Even now, I do. It's crazy because at some point when I decide to take a hiatus and just shut everything down to re-strategize and regroup, I will still get to a point where, say, I'm passing girls' high school and it takes me an hour just to pass by girls' high school, and I'm signing autographs and, you know.
So saying, yo, can I have a picture?
Yeah.
Can I do this?
And I mean, years after all of that, you know, and I'm like, you know me, you guys are young people, like, you know, I'm feeling old right now, but they have somehow heard the music, you know. So
did you perform a lot during that year? Because you were in school, and you, as you said, you're not really much of a performer, so.
yes,
Yeah.
when I went to South Africa for school, I was signed to a company called Native Young.
Right.
And crazy story, they were actually called Virgin Child before they changed their name to Native Young. And imagine, if you know Sir Richard Branson, he has his companies in South Africa, you know, your Virgin Active, and they actually sued my bosses,
Really?
Fortune Maswanganyi and Richard Tlongwane, for using the name Virgin. And, you know, I remember my boss saying, you know, we came from court and the representative said, you're too small for us to pursue this. But now you know. You know.
Change your name now.
Yeah.
Right now.
So they actually changed their name. And then we were a group of 5. It was myself, Ashley Dube, a girl called Nyasha Mtetwa who did the vocals on Stunner's Rudo Wemari.
Oh, really?
Song, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we were at the same vibe, and she, yeah. So the 3 of us, Ashley Dube played in a band with Sam Mutukudzi at Prince Edward. So the 3 of us have teamed up at Limpopo University, and then it was a gentle Shangani boy called Promise Sarila, stage name Mash, and a couple, a husband and wife, called Cedo Camp. So we actually started, we were 8 months in, we had 8 tracks we had recorded, and we started traveling around South Africa with Native Young. I'm talking about, you know, we were performing in stadiums with, you know, to where you get there, you get backstage and you're seeing combis of acts. I remember standing out by the door, waiting for my performance, and seeing Bongo Muffin and, if you remember, Revolution.
Right.
And wanting to just be like, oh, I'm going to say hi, you know, and my boss saying, Tererai, how did you get here? You greet each other in your own time, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
So South Africa really taught me the business side to music. Everything else on point. You know, we know what we're doing in studio. We know, you know. But I now had, you know, an image consultant. So we had someone who would take us to your legits, to your Forshinis, just to do outfits, you know, makeup, jewelry, you know, to say you are going to look like this. And when I left South Africa, I had 2 songs that we had recorded. You know, I was unable to get any of the other tracks we had done because I was under contract. And I just missed home so much.
You just wanted to be back.
I wanted to be back, you know, and I felt like I knew so much, you know, and this is just gonna work now. I know what I'm doing.
But the space had changed.
The space had changed, and
which year was that?
I came back 2009. And the crazy thing, I came back 2009 and then had kind of started to acquire musical equipment, and I had a band that was, living in. We did a few, concerts. We did a few shows for your Ernst and Youngs and things like that. And then I remember, if you remember 2010, there was a concert called The Real Deal Concert. Sean Paul and
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Akon came.
Yeah.
And I remember Tererai and I were talking about, wouldn't it be crazy if we got on that performance? You have to understand that I was one of 2 females who were contracted for that performance. We literally went to their offices.
Like, we want to perform.
I would like to perform. And there's a guy called Alex Gore who was there, who had a group called
Alex
Brown
G.
Eyes. And he said, Terry, okay, cool. And then he showed me this paper, and it was like artists, that were supposed to be.
Who else performed at that concert?
It was Maroja, Cynthia Mari, Leonard Mapfumo, XQ. So what happened was, Urban Groovers, there were certain people who had contracts. Then what they did was they let other people in on their slot.
Right.
And when I remember my management going in with my performance disc. So my performance and Tererai Mandevu's performance we had done one set. So we were semi-live, we had done rehearsal for weeks, and it was just looking stellar, And I remember my management went to put our disc in, and they actually were paying money to the side stage management to boot out artists so they could get their artists in. And It's so funny, there was a guy from Zambia who performed, and they started canning him on stage. So that happened. But I got to meet Akon. That was really cool. We had these limited access tags. But I remember I actually got to meet him, and I was like, if nothing else happened, cool. So it was just, badness started happening, my fellows doing bad on me, bad on the next man. I'm talking about the sabotage was starting to happen this one way, I recall performing at the Mr. Juicy stand at the showgrounds, and it was time for Cindy to go on. And Cindy was coming from Macastrata, and we were Chamhembe. And I remember her going on and then pulling the plug out on her. And I'm not going to say names, but it was one of us. And, just us being like, ha, 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 ha,
So the sabotage thing was real?
It was real.
Wow.
But it started to happen to where I was experiencing it now. I would get called for shows. I did a lot of shows with, I would get called to schools. I would get called to St. Ignatius. I would get called to Girls' High School, Queen Elizabeth, Convent, St. Dominic's. And I would always I would say, I'm not coming alone. I'm coming with Pauline, Cindy, Hope Masike, and we would get there. It was otherwise all good, but few occasions. So what happens, this one show we had, and I had got called to Girls' High School, and I had decided I'm going to take all females. Chiwoniso Maraire was still alive. She actually came, and we were getting 50 US for our performances, and it was just the girls wanted people to do 1 or 2 songs,
Right.
So I got Chiwoniso, Hope Masike, Ruth Mangwa, Pauline, Cindy. And imagine you get there, it's the stage, there's a DJ, and you leave your CD by the DJ box.
Right.
And then there's nothing there but just a little table, a computer with the CPU, and then, a cordless microphone. And when it's time for me to perform, he can't find my disc anyway. We look all over. He can't find my disc anyway. So I go on and I announce to everyone, guys, listen, we've had a technical thing happen. So I want you guys just to,
So I can sing for you still.
And I sing for you, and everyone stands up, and it's still like, I'm gonna say, mwah, namwari baba, for just
But it came
putting
out
certain
nice.
things down,
Right.
It came out all right, I was not worse off than when I got there. And years later, we were at Londoners having drinks, and that same DJ came. He was so wasted, and he knelt down, and he said, Tererai, nokumbira uregerero with what I did that day. And he told me the name of the individual who gave him 10 US.
Like you need to make the CD disappear.
Make it disappear. So for years it was weird to me. I couldn't. It happened.
So Terry, as we come to a close, right? Chamhembe happens, right? Do you think we could have held that group of people with that level of energy, with that level of creativity, and everything that was happening at the time in the same space, making that kind of music for any longer than Chamhembe Plus?
That is such a weird question, hey. I find questions like that. Like, I understand that you want people to think about what they have done. So in order for people to think about what they have done, I want to just say, I'm sorry that not everyone was brought up the way I was by a woman who will, as you go out there, will tell you to remain grounded and humble about what you do, and remember that it's about God. You're gonna see people who are gonna come to you and close to worshiping you. That means nothing. Tererai mwanangu, remember who you are. You're doing this to someone else's glory. Don't think that you are the reason that, So I watched people get so big-headed to where people would even ask for me to ask them for a selfie. You know what I mean?
It was that bad.
It got so bad. So I just feel like we are exactly where we are supposed to be. We've learned the exact lessons we were supposed to learn,
I like that.
And there's still room to come up and out.
I like that. Terry,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Cool. And next time, carry a USB, not a flash. Carry two, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you more.
Yeah.
Because you tell them my story.